If it wasn't for fussy cut applique, I would have never made my first quilt. It's a technique I absolutely love. Now, I did mine originally with seascape style fabric, but today we're doing it all with florals and we're calling it the Bouquet Applique. Let's get started. Take a better look at this quilt behind me here. Now check it out. We've got a striped background. We've got this wonderful text in our midground. And then you see all of the fussy cut or the broderie pierce style applique coming together with all of this floral work, which makes the cool wreath around our words. Now, in order to make today's quilt, I really built my entire background first. And I did that because I wanted to keep it all square. Supplies wise, I chose everything all from one designer so that it all worked beautifully together. So the background is built from the Moda Fabrics, and these are 20 piece, they're called junior rolls, 2.5 inch strips, but only 20 in each. So that's where the cream and the gray comes from. This line by Bonnie and Camille is called Smitten, and it's just absolutely beautiful, but I want you to look close. In the midground, I have kind of a fun micro print. The rest is all floral. They're all the same sizes, basically, but they have some different colors and things in them. They all blend well together, and what I really want you to hear and see is that most of them, except for this one, have the same background color, and that's going to be really important for our applique. So we build our background first so we can keep everything square, and that was done using 10 of the white colored or cream colored strips and 9 of the gray ones. And I built them basically like this, sewing 2 by 2, so a cream and a gray, a cream and a gray. Then I could add them 4 by 4, 8 by 8 to build it all the way out so that it was just easier for the sewing management at the sewing machine. Then what we're going to do, before we put on the borders, we need to make it a square. So what I want us to do is I'm going to measure from where that seam is up in there, all the way down, and I'm just going to tell you mine was 38 inches, but that's because of my seam allowance and the way I press. Mine was 38 tall, I'm going to make it 38 wide, also known as a square. And that's all the hard work of making the background. Then what you're going to do is you're going to put on these cool 3-dimensional flange borders and exterior borders. I do that all in the same step, and I have an entire quick tip video just on that process, and I'll put a link at the back of today's video for you so you can just check that out if you don't understand how this was done. I have several other steps I want you to see closely, so we're just going to keep moving here. Background is created and finished, roughly 42 square right now, and then what we want to do is we want to start talking about our midground. The midground, as you see behind me, is a circle, but started as a 24-inch square. Once it was a square, I folded it into quarters, and then just simply using my 15-inch ruler from 12, because it's folded in half, it was 24, from 12 up, I start to mark with a chalk line, rotary cut to create myself what is hopefully a perfect circle. Now, what you're going to see, and you probably saw me stumbling a little bit with that as I was unfolding it, is I also already have my design pre-fused to the back of this. Make sure you understand the steps in the correct order. Create your circle first. Then what I used was Google and their documents program so that you could all follow along. I created the text. Choose any word you like. Of course, I love joy, so I choose joy. And I picked a font that had some fun squirrely and swirly work, but what I'm really trying to say here is look, all of the letters are connected, and that makes my work so much easier when I'm building the applique pieces back together. So when you're choosing a font style, look at the way the letters connect. It might make your life a little bit easier that way. Now, here is the paper that I created, and the letters are backwards because it's a fused applique, and that's the way that the heat and bond Featherlight works. So this text is also backwards here. It was traced onto the fusible web. Cut down, it doesn't need to fit the entire circle. As a matter of fact, I don't want fusible web all the way around the circle. The flowers will hold down the outer edge later. Makes your machine quilting so much easier for you. But I do want at least all the way around the words. The last thing I want to point out about the words is there are these little relief pieces that need to fill back in. Look at the quilt real close. So you see the stripes coming through here in the letter J for joy, but this piece needs to be placed back into the center of the tail of that J. So I've also labeled these little pieces that are the cutouts, what letter they belong to, in case I were to drop them or get confused some way. or they're different sizes in your font, not sure. Now, this is the perfect use for my wonderful invention, the Shark Applique Cutter, because I don't want to affect any of the outside of this. I only want to cut the letters. So I'm going to hold this little cutter like a pen, and I'm going to come up here with a nice medium pressure, and I'm just cutting right on my line. And of course, you can cut in multiple directions. Here like this. And remember, all of this information in the lettering is important to your design, so none of it can be cut off of the line or it will negatively affect your design. So each piece counts, and I tell you what, I'm going to cut the rest of this out in caffeinated mode. I'll be right back. Hey, welcome back everybody. As you can see, I've finished cutting out the lettering, but I've also made a few other changes to the set. So let me tell you exactly where we're all at as a team here. I've gone ahead and I've put some batting underneath my entire project because I'm going to design and install all of this flat, including my pressing of the applique pieces, so nothing else moves from this point on. So I have my background with batting completely underneath it. I've taken my circle, and after I cut out all of the outsides of the letters, I then used the stripes and basically just a ruler to make sure that the circle is centered to the square background. Once I got the exterior where I wanted, I've come back through and I've been placing the little spots within the letters themselves, as I mentioned earlier. The last piece I wanted to do to show you here was to go ahead and put in the big center of that J. A lot of times when we have fusible web, the paper may catch a little bit, so people will do a scoring or tearing technique. I like to use my little stiletto. I can poke at it. This one I got up there in the corner and was real easy to go. So as I peel back, I'm just making sure that I've got the clear of the fusible web glue on the fabric. And then what I'm doing with all of these particular letters is I'm just using the actual line of the letter to line up where I'm going to place the interior of the text or the font. Now, as you'll remember, there was some glue around the outer edges of the lettering, but not on the outer edges of the actual fabric itself, of the circle I'm trying to say. So what I want to do right this second, because I've already double checked, everything looks good, I'm going to take my hot dry iron and I am going to press straight down, 1, 2, 3, because I'm using the Heat and Bond Feather Light fusible web. And I am now pressing the lettering because this helps hold all of this in place while I move about on the flower work that I'm going to do here in just a second. So we're going to make sure all of this gets locked down really good, all of those little parts and pieces of the letters here. And this is the benefit of working flat, and this is why I've got at least one, if not two good layers of my batting underneath me. So that really should do everything I need there for my lettering. All right, so once we have all of the font pressed down, we're ready to start discussing the fussy cut or that broderie pierce applique. Now, just a quick reminder, I chose a bunch of fabrics from the same line and it really, really worked well together, as you can see in the quilt behind me. We're gonna need this background color, and let me show you what I've actually really done. What happened here is I took the time to cut out everything to begin with. And the way we're doing this is what they call broderie pierce applique. It leaves a little bit of an outline of the background fabric around. So what I like to do when I'm doing this is I really come in here with my scissor and I'm just going to use as much of the scissor blade as possible, and I'm just kind of rolling the fabric around. And the reason that this style of applique is really nice is I don't actually have to cut perfectly along the lines of the print of the floral against the background. You can see I'm leaving the background, and then because all the background being the same color later on when I do my machine quilting, that is the color thread that I choose to use. So this actually eliminates the need for perfection. It gives us a very easy opportunity for our layout because we're not worrying about that overlap of color, and it just simplifies the entire process. And I find that anytime art is simple, it's fun for me. So I've almost got this done for us here. And again, just wanted to point out, I left a bit of that perimeter. That's all intentional. The other thing I often would do with these is when they're always the fat quarter, and I should have told you this first, is I cut the individual flowers out usually, just to make it easier to manage, or so you can sit on your couch or in your favorite rocker and cut and enjoy some peaceful time outside of your studio. Now, with that all said and done, there is an actual rhythm to the way we're going to lay down our colors. I started with my darkest color floral fabrics first, the blues, and there are different size flowers in here, so I'm trying to find my largest ones as I go through first. And I'm literally going to kind of think of this like a clock. So I've got a flower at 6 and a flower at 12 up there, 9 and 3, something like that. We're going to stop right there for a second. Let's discuss this because this same theory goes for everything else I'm doing. I'm putting them around the outside. I mentioned earlier the glue is going to mount the blueprint work to the cream and gray stripe work in the background. Notice I'm trying to make it look like the flowers are falling kind of in an order. The stems I'm not too worried about, but I am keeping a rotation going, and I'm going to use up all of my blue fabric before I come to my next color in the lineup, working with my biggest pieces down. So we can drop in another piece around here. And I have already pre-peeled all of my paper off the back of these. I should have mentioned that early on, which also gives me the opportunity to come through here and do this fast. Now look at the quilt for just a second, if you will. Those blue ones are the blue ones you're seeing along here. This is the inner portion. So we also want to save some of those blue ones for the outer portion as well. And those ones were my little bit smaller pieces. And I actually start to drop them kind of in that space in between those two, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to get it so my eye systematically and rhythmically kind of finds color throughout the wreath of flowers. I don't want it to look completely systematic, but fairly easy to play with, and it makes it way easier for me to teach you all as well. So every now and again, I'll throw in a little maverick. Watch your corners down here, and you don't have to use every single piece, but you can see I've started to create the perimeter with the blue, and then as I said, didn't use every piece, we're gonna start to put in the red ones. Same exact theory. I'm gonna look for my bigger pieces first, and now I'm gonna kind of drop them off of the blue pieces, and let's say we're just going to always have it be on the right hand side for me here. Let's find a few more of these bigger ones to position throughout, and I don't always want a big red with a big blue, sometimes over, sometimes under. And what I'm going to start to do here as I work through these colors, I'm just kind of periodically stepping back, making sure everything feels balanced. Anything that doesn't feel balanced, I can remove it or shift it, move it about. Well, that one's pretty big together. See what I'm saying? There, that's going to make more sense like that. It's okay to feel your way through this kind of stuff. Okay, we're almost wrapped it up with this color. With these reds as we're going through. You can see it's filling in pretty dang nice. Okay, so look back over here at my palette, if you will. The next color in my order, we're just gonna speed this up, get rid of those. Out you go, out you go. Now, this is the next color I used. It's the only one that didn't have the cream color in the background. So it's gonna lay in, it's gonna take in some of the depth. I'm using it as a lot of the filler. So as you start to see me place these pieces down, I'm not necessarily putting them right in order here, but I'm kind of laying them into the space in between. So that starts to quickly add a lot of depth and a lot of color into the thickness of our wreath as we build it out. These only had a couple different kinds of shapes to work within. as far as the print goes. So there's not as much variety because it was a small coordinate to the whole Smitten line, but it has a lot of the fun colors that comes together. And you can also, of course, put a few on the edges. Inside, outer edge. And then with this, I really want to fill in. Remember, if you're looking at the quilt behind me as I'm working here, you don't see any of the stripe work in between in the wreath. And then the other thing is I started to fill in this space a little bit to make that off center. And in those ones, I did try to position the flowers just right as I was working through. Back to the palette we go. I was saying I was working from my darkest to my lightest, and then as you come across here, you're like, but wait, Rob, this color here is lighter than this color. But the way it worked in the transition, this was when I kind of stood there for a minute, scratched my head, and then I just went with what felt right to me and looked right to me. And I really liked that process. Now, I think you know what I'm going to start to do, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on caffeinated mode and put down a bunch of these flowers. I'll be back in a few minutes to talk about the machine quilting. Enjoy this process. Now, as you can see, I'm finishing up with my last fabric choice, and I did save this for last because it was the multicolor rose print, and it brings it all back together. And I'm also now, as you saw with that last multi-print, I was basically quickly filling up the holes. So yes, I'm looking for holes in the background that need to be covered, but I'm also looking for the real color balance as I go through to make sure that the project has both complete coverage, but the elegance that I was looking for in the design. So the last step after that happens, let's see, I think I can use that over there. And as I said earlier, the last step is going to be to go through and organize all of this. And I really don't want any of the gray or cream to slide through. So this is the point where I just use the little tip of my stiletto as I work through, and I can shift things and move things about to get it just right, cover things up. I will also sometimes take the time to poke in some of those stems, pull out a few leaves to give just that extra layered and textured effect. Once everything is just the way you want it visually, then you're ready to iron one last time. And just as a reminder, with the iron, and I want to spend a little more time adjusting these, so I'm not going to actually press this because we're almost finished with this quilt. There's no reason to rush it at this point. I'm going to press straight down and up, straight down and up. If I start to move this around in a sliding motion, it's going to start to really mess up the applique pieces. So please just up and down as you go. Once everything's perfect, you won't be able to adjust it again once it's already been anchored down. After that final pressing process, you are ready for the free motion machine quilting, and it is super fun and easy, but we're going to start like we do when we do traditional quilts. We're going to start in the center, and what I did for this is I did free motion, and well, let's go to the quilt. It'll look even more fun. I started right in here, and I used a blue thread because it was the center, and I stitched around the lettering first, and the inner portions of the letters. That's going to help anchor it. That's going to help hold everything down. Now you can't really see, but I just did some easy little kind of clamshell swirls in here. Same kind of florally motif. All of the blue has been secured first before I make my way to the edge of the flowers. Once I get to this inner edge of our floral work, I've loaded that cream colored thread I talked about, and I am using polyester thread because there's a lot of fusible web involved in a lot of layers, so this just really helps us not shred or break the thread. So then I'm going to be right on the edge in that cream color area, stitching down every upper edge of every applique piece. So I start to work, but then I'll go in through sections and I'll work little areas of the florals, and I'll come back to the edge, and then little areas of the floral going all the way around the inner circle, moving through the middle of the floral piece to the outer circle. Then when all of that free motion was done, I literally did stitch in the ditch, but I didn't take the time to put the feed dogs back up. I just did it with my free motion foot On the cream color stripes, I just did both bands of my stitch in the ditch on the cream just to make life easy, and that secured the background. And I didn't do any quilting in those outer borders because I really wanted this to be like a framed and matted art wall piece like so many quilts are becoming. One of my favorite things about quilting is we have navigated or gravitated off of the bed and onto the wall, which means our entire homes are covered with quilts in every awesome place we look. So a lot of information today. Wow, I hope you were able to digest all the steps, and if not, that's what the pause button is for, and we will see you right here next time at Man Sewing. Thanks for being a Man Sewing fan. It's great to have you out there encouraging me to create fantastic new content. If you've missed any of the videos, we've got links for you here, and while you're checking those out, make sure you're subscribed. We don't want you to miss any of the action.